Welcome back to Port Elizabeth, the beautiful city. This is part 44. We're at the top of Military Road where it intersects with Belmont Terrace, as you can see on the sign there, hopefully. So Belmont Terrace has been, what's the word, the modern word? Anyway, it's been deleted, or it's no longer a politically correct term because they've renamed the street after Athol Fugard. Anyway, one of the oldest streets in PE leading to Fort Frederick. So we're going to head along Belmont Terrace, looking back towards the Athenaeum. So when I did this walk in 2015, February, my aim was really to still portray Port Elizabeth as a beautiful place. That's why I'm trying to make these pictures as attractive as possible. So I wasn't focusing on the negative. I was still holding out the hope that this city would be somehow would somehow recover from 25 years of misrule, mismanagement. But there were so many signs of decay, and it was quite depressing. So Cuyler Crescent coming up on the left, and then this lovely, so I think we first head up Cuyler Street, which is the one on the right here. Cavendish House, apparently once a boarding house. So that's a great piece of early town architecture. However, next door, this lovely gabled place was looking pretty run down, I think. Yeah, for sale. Look at the state of the balconies and things. That's what happens when there's uncertainty, when a city is poorly managed. So I'm looking for the beauty in these things, and I mean, potentially there's so much with these rows of gabled houses. Yeah, the Maritime Club used to be up there, or still is, I don't know. Just an old building also converted into a club, which was great. Went there a few times, had quite a few drinks. So I need to go back to these places, of course, and see what's become of them. Yeah, the irony is you've got well-looked, well-maintained buildings right next door to atrociously degraded places. And it just takes one or two rotten eggs to reduce a place to. Okay, so that's that building on the top of. It fills that whole block between Cuyler Crescent and Military Road. It's a lovely. I don't think it's Art Deco. It kind of precedes it, I think. And this interesting balcony, eh? And that's the view down Cuyler Crescent. Interesting that the street sign takes on the shape of a cross. Belmont Terrace, looking back up Cuyler Street. Okay, so that's a bit of history here. In Cuyler, Crescent is named after Glenn Cuyler, Jacob Glenn Cuyler. And Uitenhage was founded by the Landdrost, or district magistrate, Cuyler in 1804. So a good 15, 16 years before Port Elizabeth. Cuyler had, but he was, Landrost. So we're heading down Cuyler Crescent. Now, this is one of the oldest streets in Port Elizabeth. If you look at old photos, which are in my book, you'll see up, so viewed from the mouth of the Barkens, you'll see up on this ridge overlooking the Barkens is where Cuyler Crescent is. And you'll see a lot of these old settler cottages still there, but obviously quite a few have been removed and replaced by high-rise apartment blocks. So this kind of awning was typical of the old settler cottages. So you can imagine without these trees in the foreground, which would have grown over the last 100 years, rows of houses with these things on, all at different levels. Real pretty picture. There's another one. I don't think it's the same one. It might be. And there's quite a sort of another Art Deco block, quite attractive in its own way. So it's quite a steep descent here down Cuyler Crescent. That's looking back up. And down towards the harbour in the distance with the Walton's building there. So as I said, without these big trees in the foreground, you'd see a lot of this sort of decoration, awnings and so forth, would have been visible back in the day. Now this road comes to a sudden halt at this point with Walton's there and this block of flats behind. But you can still walk down, which I think I did a bit, pretty nervous because there's no one around, you felt quite vulnerable. There's those candy striped awnings again. So this sort of view up in that book, my book on PE, you can see how these old settler cottages dominated this ridge here. There was something here as well, some wonderful building that's obviously been lost. So what is that story? So we're heading up, just different views, different angles of the same buildings, but it shows you how different things look from a different perspective. Wonderful chimneys here. And if you enter the harbour, imagine the sailing ships out there in the bay. Now, this is how the Donkin Row should still be looking. This is precisely how it was, and instead of retaining this sort of detail, they just substituted it for utilitarian modern stuff, which is characterless, really. So that's Fort Frederick, seen between two of these buildings. It even has the SA flag flying on it and a cannon up the one end. And looking across, you can see this. This is in the top of Castle Hill, is where that burnt down, gutted building is, which they would later demolish. So then there's this park between Cuyler, Crescent, and Fort Frederick. Now it looks like a well-maintained park, but there's no way I was going to walk through there. So we're back in Belmont Terrace, and I'm actually heading towards Fort Frederick. Another great old building here, but look at the awful signs stuck on it. And so it just becomes a spaza shop, like something you'd find in a third world country. Great Art Deco building there. I think this is Twickenham Road. Yeah. And there's Fort Frederick. And that Art Deco block with a really quite ugly one next to it. Fort Street, and there's a mansion here on the corner. Also some, and it's now I think a B&B type setup, but a lovely historic building here. It used to be, I think, the Harbour Master's building. All the details are in my book. But again, you lose a lot of it because of these tall trees that's now surround it. But great detail, eh? And then up Fort Street or Road, I can't remember. Trees covered in leaves because these are all oaks, I think. And so this is pretty in autumn particularly. Looking back down Fort Road Street, and in the road at the top, whose name I forget, Annalee Terrace, and then becomes Gordon Terrace here. And this overlooks the Balkans Valley. So you can imagine the views from this block of flats. And that's an alleyway between Fort Street and the valley. That's down into Balkans Valley. These surviving warehouses are definitely 19th century. Of course, pollution here, litter, like you won't believe. Eh? South End over here became a Lego land of sort of townhouse complexes. Not very attractive. So wherever you go, you get a different view of Port Elizabeth now. This is Lower Valley Road. It's not a view that's often seen, but it's attractive, you know. So we're looking up Gordon Terrace. I don't think I proceeded along it because there was a cat. And when there's a cat, I have to go and talk to it, you know. So here he is. So then Rockaby on the corner of Annalee Terrace and Twickenham Road. Another lovely building. And this is looking up Annalee. Some great roads here in houses in Twickenham Road. Like that. And that. So I think a colleague of mine, the late Bob Kernan, used to live here. I think this is number 1 Twickenham. Scotsman, been out in this country about 40 years there. Still had his accent. Glaswegian, I think. Back in Belmont Terrace, and there's this was behind high walls, so I just poked the old camera over the top. And we're heading back along Belmont, down Military, Athenaeum, into Lower Bird. Nothing's changed. Just different perspectives, which is what I try to do. The different sides of a road give you a whole new vantage point of places. Back with the garbage waiting to be collected, and a quick view into Trinder Square where the these things. sleeping. And next to them, this lovely building. Okay, so here we have just a view of where we walked. So this is Military Road here. So I parked here in Bird Street, down Military, up along Cuyler Street for a bit, then down Cuyler Crescent, back up along Belmont, and then up Fort Street. Looked around here a bit, and back along here down Twickenham here. Sorry, and then back. Yeah, so till next time. Cheers.